Okay, so yesterday we published, I don't know when this video is going to go up, but I published a video talking about the single cord, cheaper rebounders that you find out there. And a lot of people came back and said, okay, you spoke so much about the Bungee rebounder and the deluxe and the pro, etc. But what about the spring? You didn't say anything about the spring rebounder. Okay, so let me talk about the spring rebounder. The spring rebounder is the piece of equipment that we have in our arsenal that has been with us from the very beginning. Okay, so it is like the original rebounder. And a lot of people that have springs are very religious about their springs because it's the first thing that they got, the first piece of equipment that they started their rebounding journey on. I totally get that. But now there's this contention of like springs versus bungees. Are springs better? Are bungees better? Let's talk about that. I want to unpack that in a lot of detail with you right now and give you some perspective on it. If you're starting your rebounding journey, a spring is an incredible piece of equipment, but you've got to be careful. Just like I explained that you get really, really bad rebounders that hurt your body, stay away from those. Similarly, we're finding very cheap imported springs. You can find them at your traditional retail stores. Obviously, I can't mention the names. And like I said in the last video, if you're going to bounce on a piece of equipment that is not qualitative, i.e. a traditional retail-based rebounder, spring rebounder, then rather do not rebound. It's going to hurt your body. Bad rebounder, don't rebound. Go for qualitative. Make the health investment, save up, and ensure you're on a platform that's not going to hurt you or incur injuries. Because we have seen some very serious injuries occur because people are doing our workouts. And we love our workouts because they are the best, the free live classes, etc. But then they go off and do them on these like inexpensive rebounders. This is not dissimilar to the spring. So this is our little spring over here. I love this rebounder. This rebounder is the original, like I said, it's where we started off. And what we've done with this rebounder is we have sourced this rebounder from a manufacturer that has built it according to our quality specifications, and Lisa's she is like adamant about that Goldilocks bounce. So when you bounce on our spring, you will feel there isn't that dead spot, that moment on that split second where you feel your weight's going through the mat and then suddenly there's that jerk. It doesn't bring you back up again, right? You just fall. So the graph goes up, right, as you're bouncing down, and then there's this break, and then up, and then there's a break. You want to be avoiding that because that results in spinal injuries, etc. Warning, if you got a rebounder like that, don't stop, don't rebound. Okay, it's just going to hurt your body. Invest in our spring rebounder. Now, we believe this is the best spring rebounder in the country. And like I said, I love our spring. If you're starting off your rebounding journey, the nice thing about the spring, number one, it is extremely portable. Folding up this rebounder, taking the legs out. I mean, the legs are so easy to flick out once it's folded, right? You just pull it out. And there you go. It folds down. That's really cool. And then wherever you are, you just flick it back up again. Because it's metal, this thing goes anywhere. We have checked this rebounder into, like my spring and Lisa's spring. Yeah, we both have springs. So as much as we are ultimate believers in bungee rebounders, we do have springs also. But we utilize our springs for traveling. We utilize our springs when we're going from A to B, we fold them up, we put them in the back of the car, or we check them in at the airport, or you get wherever you are and you flick this little rebounder out, doesn't take a lot of space, and off and away you go. This again, the quality of the bounce is key. So if you jump on our springs, you're not gonna get a dead spot. So when I'm on here, pronation of feet's not happening, it's a beautiful bounce. It's not hurting my body at all. You know, when you get those other rebounders and you bounce, you're gonna feel that like jerky movement. Ours, not gonna get that. Okay, so bad spring versus good spring. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna go fetch a bad spring rebounder. Let's cut for a second. And action, back again. Okay, so if you take a look at what I'm standing on one of those rebounders. I'm gonna go fetch it, right? So if I bounce on this rebounder, oh man, I feel it. So when you bounce on it, it does have a bounce. But there's this dead spot where it doesn't bring you back up again. Why? Because of the springs on this rebounder. Springs are really bad. Look at that. Bad springs, bad connection, bad mat, cheap, really inexpensive, right? And there you're going and you're training, this is gonna lead to injury. Versus this spring. I mean, the bounce in the spring is just actually night and day. Amazing rebounder. It's cost effective. It is the cheapest one in our range, and you get your value for money is incredible on a spring. So if you get it, portability. If you have a spring and you go to a bungee, what's really cool is now you have two rebounders. The bungee becomes the one that's stationary wherever you are, and the spring is the thing that you use in the rest of the house. Moving from spring to bungee is what we're seeing a lot of people doing. Now, why is that happening? Does that mean the spring's a bad rebounder? Not at all. Right, you've got two pathways that you can travel. You can buy a spring, very inexpensive, get fit, get there, and then you don't necessarily have to migrate to a bungee. This happens often on a spring. People's heart rates get to a certain level on a spring, and then it doesn't climb anymore. So your beats per minute, in terms of your heart rate, starts stagnating as you get fitter. We've seen this over and over and over. Right? So if you had to look at the time-effort difference, the spring requires half the amount of effort that a bungee rebounder in our range takes. Why? The spring is metal, so it's popping you up. So while you're on here, the effort it's less. It's a whole lot less. Versus a bungee rebounder where there's a bit of a lag. And what we've determined based upon our studies and tests over here is that on our spring, if you 10 minutes on our spring, it's equal to about 5 minutes on a bungee. And a lot of people that actually come to our classes that have never experienced the bungee rebounder, they get on our bungee rebounders and they really, really struggle. But now, does that mean I throw away my spring and I go to bungee? Not at all. That's not what we're saying. If you can't afford to add a bungee or migrate or upgrade, it really is an upgrade to a bungee rebounder, great. But the spring, keep it around, let the kids use it, you can use it in other places, you can travel with it, etc. If you feel like I love my spring, we have a set of accessories. I guess you could burn just as much as you would on a bungee, right? But that same burn on a bungee would be without any accessories. What we are honestly seeing, and I'm seeing this all the time, people come into our store, they're used to springs, I put the bungee down and I say bounce, and they smile. Because the impact absorption on a bungee is greater. So it's less trauma on your body, less impact, because it's just a softer bounce. Mat surface area, much larger than the spring, arguably twice as large as the spring. Look, it's also a softer rebounder. Like the spring's hard, it's got bull horns, it's got, pieces of metal jutting out, even though the skirt does cover it. Whereas the bungee is a softer feel, right? It feels safer, especially around kids, etc. Or the aged. Or if you feel like, whoa, if I fall here, where do I fall? A bungee is a really cool rebounder in that regard. Wide mat surface area requires more effort. So when you're on this rebounder, it requires more effort, right? Then versus like running on there. So you're burning double the amount of calories in the same amount of time. You decide, is this for me or is that for me, or are they both applicable to my lifestyle? But I'll say this very clearly. What we are seeing is a lot of people upgrading from springs to bungee rebounders. Why? It's more time efficient. I also like the fact that when I get on here and I have an injury or a niggle, the bungee rebounder is definitely softer on you and you're going to feel your injury less than being on a spring. It's just because it's got a higher impact absorption. But it's completely up to you. But I just want to say this very clear, very, very clearly. People that are bouncing on bungee rebounders never go back to springs. We have never seen that. So when you do upgrade and you go to a bungee and you start working out here, it's very difficult to go back to a spring again. Why? Mat surface area, it feels harder in terms of the impact on the mat. It's easier, so you're not getting the same workout because it's not as challenging, etc., etc. But nothing wrong with springs. It's not this versus this. On your rebounding journey, if you want to upgrade, you want to do more, a bungee provides more. But it doesn't mean the spring's a bad rebounder. We love our spring. It's an incredible, if you've started with the spring, nothing wrong. Keep going. If you want to increment the intensity of a spring so you get the same kind of calorie burn, look at our accessories, ankle weights, hand weights, weighted gloves, resistance bands. Incorporate all of that like we do in our workouts, and yes, you're going to get the results. But I know when you jump on that, I know what's going to happen. And especially you ladies out there, with your husbands. Put him on a spring and then put him on a bungee and watch the difference. Guys are not as good. I mean, ladies are really good at rebounding. We suck. But when we get on rebounders that are wide with our larger feet sizes and the mat surface area is bigger, it's just a lot more comfortable for us. And we feel more confident doing the moves that we need to do. So that's the story between these rebounders. Do not buy cheap. Buy amazing quality, but realize there is a difference between the two. They do complement each other. If you've got the budget and you can afford it, they complement each other beautifully. Travel, mobility, additional room you can have it in. But this is definitively where you're going to land up. Everyone that starts with springs, in the end, lands up on a bungee platform. Hopefully that clarifies it for all of you. Thanks.